founders of the 28th Annual Nagasaki Peace Ceremony. Nagasaki, the city devastated by the bitter tragedy of a nuclear bomb, dedicates this Nagasaki bell as a symbol of the rebirth of Nagasaki and the desire of its citizens for peace in the future through sincere reconciliation and reflection on the folly of war. The Nagasaki Bell, donated by Nagasaki, Japan, December 7, 1990. The Nagasaki Peace Bell has rung every year since 1990, but has stopped ringing since 2013. Honolulu Nagasaki Peace Ceremony founders, Marcia and Ken Joyner, Francis and Valdo Figlielmo. Joyner worked closely with Valdo and Francis Figlielmo in establishing Honolulu's Nagasaki Peace Bell and the annual remembrance of the victims of the U.S. bombing of Nagasaki. She worked tirelessly for 40-plus years for civil and human rights, Native Hawaiian rights, world peace, and other progressive causes. Dr. Viglielmo assisted radiation survivors of the Nagasaki atomic bombing to have a Nagasaki Peace Bell erected and maintained next to Honolulu Hali in 1990. A noted scholar and translator of Japanese literature, he taught for 37 years in the East Asian Languages Department of Literature at the University of Hawaii, Manoa. August 6, 1945, U.S. bombs Hiroshima. August 8, 1945, President Truman signs the UN Charter and the U.S. is the first nation to join the United Nations. August 9, 1945, at 11:02 a.m., an atomic bomb, codenamed Fat Man, devastates Nagasaki with recorded temperatures of 4,000 degrees centigrade. Steel melts at 1,400 degrees centigrade. Mr. Ito, the former mayor of Nagasaki Prefecture, wrote, "Decades have passed since that day. Now the atomic bomb survivors are advancing into old age, and their memories are fading into the mist of history." The question of how to inform young people about the horror of war, the threat of nuclear weapons, and the importance of peace is therefore a matter of pressing concern. The citizens of Nagasaki pray that this miserable experience will never be repeated on Earth. We also consider it our duty to ensure that the experience is not forgotten but passed on intact to future generations. Efforts of the Congress Against Atomic and Hydrogen Bomb Committee of Nagasaki and the Nagasaki Prefecture Hibakusha Membership Association endured a lengthy process of raising funds and negotiating with the mayor and the City Council of Honolulu for acceptance and placement of the Peace Bell Monument in an appropriate location for the general public. The citizen groups in both cities saw the success of the project in the dedication ceremony on December 7, 1990, on the grounds of City Hall. The Peace Bell was rung for the first time to the great satisfaction of the delegation of 60-plus members of the Nagasaki Hibakusha in attendance. Along with Honolulu, 2 other Peace Bell monuments of the same design were gifted to the city of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, Russia, and to a city in Manchuria, northeast China. These cities felt the brunt of the Japanese military. In 1996, the Nagasaki Hibakusha reaffirmed their commitment to the spirit of the bells by sending each of the 3 cities additional gifts of $10,000 for monument maintenance. A Nagasaki Peace Bell gift from Nagasaki was installed in Haydn, Switzerland in 2010. The Peace Bell is one of 5 copies of the Angelus bells from the Utakami Cathedral in Nagasaki. The church was destroyed in the atomic blast. Going beyond the Nagasaki Peace Bell, the sunflower. Sunflowers, instead of missiles in the soil, would ensure peace for future generations. U.S. Secretary of Defense William Perry. Sunflowers symbolize a world free of nuclear weapons. After Ukraine gave up its last nuclear warhead, the defense ministers of the United States, Russia, and Ukraine met on a former Ukrainian missile base on June 4, 1996. They celebrated by scattering sunflower seeds and planting sunflowers, which can remove toxins, including nuclear waste, from soil and water. Taken from the book, Choose Hope.
The program will now commence with the national anthem of Hawaii, Japan, and the United States of America. Please rise. Kitagawa. The Star Spangled Banner. Thank you. Please remain standing for the Buddhist prayer by Reverend
Takamasa Yamama from the Honolulu Myohoji Mission. To offer the Kulevehe, Reverend Kenneth Makuakane, pastor of Kauai Church.
Let us pray. We are molded, each and every one of us, in the image of Kiakua. And within our souls is a fingerprint that none can erase. We pray for those who have no regard for others but self, who put no value on human life, for nations and individuals who abuse and kill. We are not called to be judge or jury, but we are called to be agents of change. And if the dove of peace who flaps its wings should be our attitude towards others, let it be so. And may the hurricane that this wing generates somewhere in the world reach the hearts and souls of those whom we pray for, and reveal to them how precious are those whom they have no love for, and how precious are they who now bring tears to our eyes. We pray for the power to be gentle, for the strength to be forgiving, for the patience to be understanding, and the endurance to accept the consequences of holding on to what we believe to be right. May we put our trust in the power of good to overcome evil, and the power of aloha to overcome hatred. We pray for the vision to see and the faith to believe in a world emancipated from violence. A new world where fear shall no longer lead men and women to commit injustices. Help us to devote our whole life and thought and energy to the task of making peace, praying always for the inspiration and the power to fulfill the destiny for which we and all men and women were created for. Makainoi ka makualania me ke keiki hiva hiva me ka uhane he mola limi o kou pakahi a pau. Amene, amene, amene.
Reverend, and amen. At this time, you may take your seats. We are properly welcomed and we are situated here for the program.
It's time for us to take a journey across the continent to New York, where we will be joined by our opening speaker. Our keynote address will be provided today by Audrey Kitagawa. She has a Juris Doctorate. She's the president and founder of the International Academy for Multicultural Cooperation. She is the recipient of the Spirit of the United Nations Award for demonstrating the vision and spirit of the United Nations as outlined in the United Nations Charter, as well as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Audrey is the chair of the Anti-Racism Initiative, co-chair of the Gender Equality Working Group of the G20 Interfaith Forum, and listed as one of the who's who in America's law. She's also a who's who of American women, who's who in America and the world, as well as prominent people of Hawaii. Please, at this time, direct your attention to the screen for a special message from Audrey Kitagawa. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Good afternoon, everyone from New York City and aloha mai kako. My deepest appreciation to the United Nations Association Honolulu chapter, to Joanne Tachibana, its president, who extended this invitation to me, and to all of the other co-sponsors of this event who have helped to make this 76th anniversary of Peace with Nagasaki commemorative remembrance possible. I was born and raised in Honolulu and am still a resident of Hawaii, and Hawaii has a very special place in my heart, and it is meaningful to me to participate in this event. I also join in the recognition of the importance of the sunflower and the Sunflower Project in Hawaii, which symbolizes our commitment to a world free of nuclear weapons. Sunflowers are known to clear nuclear waste and other toxins from our environment. And when we remember those who have been so dedicated in helping the world to become acutely aware of the need for peace and to never use nuclear weapons, we remember the hibakusha, the survivors of the nuclear bombs. We remember Nagasaki as the last city on which a nuclear bomb was detonated on a civilian population, and may its place in history never be upended by another nuclear bomb ever being dropped anywhere in the world, much less on innocent, unsuspecting civilians. 76 years after this heinous event, a quick review indicates how seriously the world takes the threat of weapons. And I want to share successes made that we can celebrate, even as we acknowledge that there are now 9 nuclear weapon states since the bomb was last dropped on Nagasaki. The Nobel Peace has made 3 peace awards specifically for organizations that address the nuclear weapons issue. Beginning in 1985, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to international coalitions for the prevention of nuclear war. In 1995, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to Pugwash Conference on Science and World Affairs for its efforts to diminish the part played by nuclear arms in international politics and in the longer run, to eliminate such arms. In 2017, to the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, or ICAN, for its work to draw attention to the catastrophic humanitarian consequences of any use of nuclear weapons, and for its groundbreaking efforts to achieve a treaty-based prohibition of such weapons. Setsuko Thurlow, a hibakusha, an activist with ICAN, accepting the Nobel Peace Prize on its behalf, said, "We refuse to sit idly in terror as the so-called great powers took us past nuclear dusk and brought us recklessly close to nuclear midnight. We rose up. We shared our stories of survival. We said humanity and nuclear weapons cannot coexist." Through ICAN's fierce mobilization and activism, it was able to see the passage on January 22nd, 2021, of the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons come into effect. This treaty prohibits the production, possession, use, testing, manufacturing, acquiring, or stockpiling of nuclear weapons or other nuclear explosive devices. Unfortunately, since none of the 9 nuclear weapons countries signed the treaty, it has no enforceability as to them. These 9 countries are the United States, India, Pakistan, Israel, China, France, North Korea, Russia, and the United Kingdom. The majority of countries of the world and the non-nuclear weapon states are committed to remaining free of nuclear weapons. Many non-nuclear weapon states are party to nuclear weapon-free zones and have thereby accepted additional legal obligations not to develop, manufacture, stockpile, acquire, possess, or control any nuclear explosive devices in their territories. Today, more than 110 countries belong to nuclear weapons-free zone treaties. And yes, these steps to success, which we must all take together as a human family to save ourselves and succeeding generations from the scourge of war. And I wear this pin today, which you can see on my jacket, which came from a ginkgo tree that survived the nuclear blast in Hiroshima. It was gifted to me by Bishop William Swing, founder and president of United Religions Initiative. When the atomic bomb was dropped, 6 ginkgo trees were among the few living things to survive within a short radius of the blast site, and they're still standing today. Thus, the Japanese regard the ginkgo as the bearer of hope. It is also known as a survivor and the living fossil. May we have the resilience of the ginkgo tree that has endured through all eons to bring forth its healing properties. As a medicinal, ginkgo has been used in Asian cultures for thousands of years to provide many healing benefits. Its regenerative ability in the face of adversity teaches us how we also must be, and that is to bring forth healing in the midst of suffering, and to remind us that sacred life is regenerative. In the face of life's most horrific challenges, we must endure and never give up. May the sunflowers in the ginkgo teach us the healing qualities of nature that sustains us, though we are often blind to fully seeing and appreciating their great benefits and beauty. May we all be blessed with the hearts of peace, resilience, and the remembrance of all those that have gone before us to teach us the lessons of history, that we may never repeat the ways of destruction, but to always pursue the ways of peace. Thank you so much for this privilege and opportunity to be with all of you today. Thank you.
Words to commemorate not only this moment, but the movement to create a better, more sustainable, safe from nuclear arms world. At this time, we are going to continue the program with a series of messages from our elected officials and otherwise, and I will begin that process by sharing a message from United States Senator Mazie K. Hirono in honor of the United Nations Associations and the Peace Committee's 28th Annual Nagasaki Peace Ceremony, where we are gathered here today. For those who are streaming live or would like to watch the full message that we just watched and heard, this will be edited and shared on the Matsunaga Institute Facebook page, as well as KTUH Honolulu, and is streaming live on the radio as well. A message from Senator Hirono. Aloha and welcome everyone attending today's event commemorating the 76th anniversary of the bombing of Nagasaki. Today, we pay tribute to the thousands of lives that were lost on August 9th, 1945, and the hibakusha of those who survived the bombing and whose lives were irreparably changed as a result. As we reflect on the accounts of these survivors, their words serve as poignant reminders of the devastating cost of nuclear warfare and the dangers of nuclear proliferation. Now, more than ever, we must continue to strive for peace and change. I remain committed to the vital work of ensuring that our world is safer so that we may protect future generations from ever having to know the devastation and the devastating consequences of such war firsthand. Mahalo to the United Nations Association UNA Hawaii Honolulu chapter and the entire Peace Committee for organizing this ceremony today and for your unwavering commitments to peace and hope. Aloha, Senator Mazie K. Huron. To help bring that message forward today, it's my pleasure to introduce someone that surely needs no introduction here among us, but that is no other than Ms. Joanne Tachibana. She is president of the UNA Honolulu, Hawaii chapter. She will now share a few words as we reflect on the birthday of the United Nations and provide some historical context for today's conversation.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Joanne, and absolutely delighted to greet all of you. And thank you for accepting our invitation for our 28th ceremony honoring the bombing of Nagasaki. I'm Joanne with the United Nations Association, and the United Nations Association has been incorporated in Hawaii since 1968. And I have been a volunteer for the last 25 years in many different capacities. And the United Nations Association is one of 200 chapters nationwide. And the original was founded by Eleanor Roosevelt in 1945 when she felt that civil society should support the United Nations. So it was called Friends of the United Nations and evolved into the United Nations Association nationwide. So we are part of that chapter. And our motto, our local motto is uniting the world with aloha. So we keep that spirit of aloha as we do our projects, bringing forth the many projects that the United Nations does as it affects Hawaii. And I want to tell you the relationship that we have with the Nagasaki celebration. 20 plus years ago, Marsha Rose Joyner, who was the founder of the Martin Luther King Hawaii Foundation, we united together to do these ceremonies. Marsha was the award recipient of the Nagasaki Peace Award because her foundation would go to the bell that's in Honolulu, behind Honolulu Hale, and we had our ceremonies there for many years. But a few years ago, we were asked to move, so we were really grateful to Reverend Yamamura for hosting our ceremonies here for the last 4 years. So thank you, Reverend Yamamura and his board of directors. Thank you very much. And in reality, the irony of history actually brought the United Nations together for this ceremony. On August 6, 1945, many people historically they know that Hiroshima was the first city bombed by the United States. It was their will to end the war, right? So bombing Hiroshima was their first target, and it set the world on fire, right? Who knew nuclear weapons could do such destruction? 80,000 people vanished in one instant. Okay, so then, the shockwaves, of course, I think Japan was brought to its knees at that point, like, oh my gosh, this is really, we're going to settle the war, okay? So on August 8th, President Truman, the president at that time, said he signed the United Nations Treaty. The United States became the first sovereign nation to sign the treaty. So bomb August 6th, peace treaty August 8th. The world rejoices, right? Somehow we're going to have peace. Who knew that Truman had already approved that August 9th, the next day after signing the UN treaty, that he said, yes, bomb Nagasaki. Okay, so the world was once again shaken, and this time 40,000 vanished in an instant. Okay, so this became it made me really sad because they interviewed Truman in later years, and he said, how people something has happened in history, and the effects have been tremendous, right? And he said he sleeps well every night, but it never bothered his conscience. So I mean, as a, peace worker, peacemaker, I felt deep in my heart that was a really painful message. And years later, you may not know this, but in 1978, one great American had deep, deep remorse. The article says, "Death ends years of remorse for the atomic bomber." Major Claude Robert Italy was the pilot for the Enola Gay that bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And for the rest of his life, he was in kind of a mental chaos. So when he died, his brother said every night he screamed because he felt the pain of the people that died in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because he was a true American. He followed, what Truman had ordered, but his conscience, his deep soul was pained. So his brother felt that when he died, he may rest in peace. So he's in my prayers every day, So now getting back to the good news, that from this point on, Marcia and I did some research, and there was a book, Choose Hope, the first one. There was a book called Choose Hope. So I have a visual here. Choose Hope was written by David Krieger from the Atomic Nuclear Foundation and Daisaku Ikeda, the head of the Sukagaku International. And in this book, Choose Hope, there was a quote in there that said, sunflower seeds instead of missiles would bring peace, right? So from that impetus, we looked at, I said, Marcia, we got to create something with sunflowers, right? And we did, right? So we developed the Sunflower Project. So you see, I'm full of sunflowers. And the Sunflower Project is that we, maybe you hear Audrey, but the reason that sunflowers are so important, besides being bright and yellow and beautiful, that sunflower seeds and plants detoxify nuclear waste in the water and soil. So in Chernobyl, they scattered sunflower seeds. And in 2011, the Fukushima, they began doing sunflowers too. So we're just waiting for some results from that, but the sunflowers have been that significant. So our project has been that please plant sunflowers everywhere so we can see that you are part of the team of people saying no more atomic bombs. Okay, so this is the Sunflower Project. Okay, then so that we could get the message out to families, Marcia and I developed the next page here. We developed coloring pages, and so for the past 20 years. There's all different color, little statements about sunflowers and what they do, how helpful they are. And annually, there's a Children and Youth Day at the state capitol. So for the last 10, 15 years, we brought our coloring pages, and thousands of families have become aware about the sunflowers. So we had the kids color them, and we tell them a little story. Everyone who comes to our table gets a story about the sunflower. And whether they're active or not, but we put a little seed in their minds and hearts that we can create the sunflowers will be significant to them and when they see them. So that's our project to remind people, no more Hiroshima, no more Nagasaki, no more atomic weapons, so the world can be in love, peace, and harmony. Thank you for letting me share my message with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you. Hope everyone's enjoying the little hybrid dance I'm doing this morning. I'm having a good time. It's good to be off Zoom a little bit. So thank you so very much. For those who are here, the local chapter of the United Nations Association is filled with incredible champions, myself, Joshua Cooper, and others who go on to advocate not just here, for example, the Sustainable Development Goals, this agenda that was agreed upon by all 193 of the member states, but worldwide, and representing young people worldwide, Ari Eisenstadt as well. So we are very well represented. We may be small, but we are mighty in the global perspective in terms of the advocacy work that we do year round. And so I want to, again, thank you, Ms. Tachibana, for your advocacy work and for giving us a reason to smile in the midst of such a somber occasion and a somber memorial. And for those who joined us last year, these hit particularly close to home, as I now have a small child who was just newly born when we were here together last year. So she's almost ready for her coloring book pages. We're now going to continue our historical journey and learn a little bit more about the history of the Nagasaki Peace Bell here. And to offer that, we would like to welcome at this time former Governor John Waihee to share some insights about the history of the bell. Thank you.
Mahalo. Aloha.
Aloha.
When Bill Souza, who is a fellow member of the Royal Order of Kamehameha, called me to ask me to be here today, he told me two things. And the first was keep it short. And the second was that I was really here, in a sense, because Marsha Joyner could not be here. So today, my presence is both happy to be with all of you in supporting this cause, but also a little sad because of the role that Marsha played, not only for the cause of peace, but specifically with this project, which began actually in the early 1970s by the Villagimo, I hope I'm pronouncing that, family. The husband was a teacher at the University of Hawaii in Japanese studies, and he and his wife got involved. They reached out to the anti-nuclear committee of Nagasaki and thought we ought to do something. And the people in Nagasaki and a few people in Hawaii thought it would be nice if there was some way to connect the tragedies of Nagasaki and what happened at Pearl Harbor. And so this conversation, this idea of finding a way of bonding and of laying a foundation for peace began. And the effort took about almost 15 years. And people on both sides raised the money to buy a symbol of peace, which was the Nagasaki Peace Bell. And I know, Neil, you were on the city council in the 1990s, and Ano Mugado, so good to have you here, Tommy, and representing the council, because the City Council of Hawaii played a very important part in getting together with these volunteers and establishing a protocol and accepting the Peace Bell from Nagasaki to be rung as a symbol of that joint venture. I get to be here today because I happen to be governor in 1990. You see, this is how we all get connected to the history. But it went far beyond that because people like Marsha and others here started to think that the Nagasaki Peace Bell would be a wonderful thing to use as a part of the Martin Luther King Day celebrations in Hawaii. So Marsha and their committee used to start the events to celebrate the life of Martin Luther King by going to this bell at the city hall and ringing it. And people from Japan who were visiting, people from Nagasaki who were visiting Hawaii, were so taken by the fact that we would begin to associate their efforts with our efforts for world peace and justice and the rest of it, that they actually went back to Japan and raised the funds. And in the late 1990s, at a very beautiful spot in Nagasaki created a statue of Martin Luther King as a way of expressing their gratitude for the foundation, for the friendship that had been laid between the people of Hawaii and Nagasaki. So you see, this is not only about lofty ideals, which we all believe in. It's also about actual people sharing aloha, committing themselves to a world that would be better than the one we know. And not only did Hawaii become a recipient of a peace bell from the people of Nagasaki, but they also reached out to St. Petersburg in Russia. And there's one in Russia. And there's a peace bell in Manchuria, where I guess there was a lot of bad things that happened during the war, World War II. So you see, we are here today because the people who went before us had a vision that the world would see the day when there would be no nuclear destruction, where there would be a generation that would be born and raised in this planet that knew no violence. So the history of why we are here actually belongs to those pioneers. Aloha.
Thank you, Governor. I was at City Hall for 40 years, so I was there throughout all of this history. And the reason Myohoji Temple opened their doors to us because we didn't get permission from the administration to use the bell at behind City Hall. So our great desire for the future, in the next year, hopefully, that with COVID, that we can gather again at that bell, and because the Royal Hawaiian Band played for us, we had, Washa and I, dreamed and we did peaceful things. That's how we met Sensei at the Hiroshima event. Hear him singing, and he invited him. He didn't know. So Nagasaki has been our tradition. Some people have asked us, why don't you just combine the two, right? Go to Hiroshima, they're more popular. Well, like our ancestors, would we want to mix it up with somebody else? No. So Nagasaki has their own soul history in Hiroshima. So we have kept the fire lit for remembering the Nagasaki Hibakusha and creating this history. So to let you know, putting out the word in the universe that hopefully that we can get back to the Nagasaki Peace Bell behind Honolulu Howley. Thank you.
This event has been produced for the last 28 years, indeed, and it is an important memorial commemoration and a signifier of the deep shared commitment that we all have to create a better future for our children and grandchildren. And so we're so grateful for the advocacy work that continues on today, as indeed here in 2021, we continue to not go a day without hearing about violence and extremism and terrorism and racism. And so this work is so very important, and we all have the onus to continue on in advocacy for a better life. And it's such an honor and a privilege for me to continue as I do have very fond memories of working with Ms. Marcia Joyner and many of you who are here to create those moments. I'd like to continue on. At this point in time, we're going to welcome the Deputy Consul General of Japan here in Honolulu. And we're so glad to have here with us today Shinichi Yamanaka to provide a few words as we continue to reflect.
So, good morning. My name is Yamanaka Shinichi. So every year on this day, the local community gathered to remember the countless many who perished in Nagasaki and share prayer for everlasting world peace. As we come together today on the 76th anniversary of the bombing of Nagasaki, we are also reminded of just how far Japan and the United States have come in these post-war decades. The power of reconciliation transformed two former adversaries of war into two allies. The strong ties of friendship and mutual cooperation shared by our two countries today is a clear testimony and a solid attestation of this. I am deeply grateful for this annual day of remembrance and prayer, and it is heartening to know that this ceremony has been a tradition here in Honolulu for the past 28 years. It is yet another reminder of the strong ties and much valued friendship between Hawaii and Japan. As the only nation that has suffered atomic bombings, Japan has a duty to make known the horror associated with the use of nuclear weapons, while it works towards the realization of a world without nuclear weapons. Originally submitted by Japan, the United Nations General Assembly resolution entitled Joint Forces of Action and a future-oriented dialogue towards a world without nuclear weapons was adopted in December last year with support from 150 states with various positions, including nuclear weapon states, the USA and the UK, as well as many non-nuclear weapon states. As an official of the Japanese government, I have been involved in efforts relating to the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, as well as the Missile Technology Control Regime, which is aimed at preventing proliferation of capability for delivering nuclear weapons, and the Nuclear Suppliers Group, aimed at contributing to the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. I am humbled to have had these opportunities to play a small part in our collective efforts towards the realization of a world free of nuclear weapons. In closing, I would like to commend the United Nations Association and the Nagasaki Kenjinkai and their peace and the community partners for their hard work and tireless efforts over the years to continue this annual tradition. This gathering has allowed for the nurturing of the strong bonds which exist between Hawaii and Japan, and has provided another opportunity for our local community to come together and appreciate the true meaning of peace. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Good morning and aloha, everyone. It is such a beautiful morning in such a peaceful setting. It is an honor to join all of you here today to commemorate the 76th anniversary of the US atomic bombing of Nagasaki. The tragedy and great loss of life that followed are somber reminders that to pursue a world of peace, we must be motivated to practice conflict resolution in nonviolent ways. And we must work toward it every day, especially now when we see so much conflict in our world. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, the people of Nagasaki rose from tragedy and devoted themselves to the promise of peace, a promise to the world that what happened to them should never be forgotten and should never be repeated. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, darkness cannot be overcome with more darkness, only with light. Violence cannot be overcome with more violence, only with peace. We'll take a moment right now for the moment of silence. Thank you for taking that moment of silence. You may be seated. And we just took a moment. We did want to hit that 11:02 time, so I'll just continue with the conclusion of my words. So let me continue. Now more than ever, we must work towards building a culture of dialogue that fosters knowledge shared between people of different nations, celebrates diversity of thought and culture, and is inclusive of all people, regardless of nationality, race, gender, or disability. Despite where we are in the world, we all have a role in lighting the path towards peace and prosperity. Mahalo to all of you and to the organizers of today's just so very meaningful event to all of us. Aloha.
Of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. September 1959, Dr. King was here and provided some words before the opening address of the legislature. And among the things that he said, I look back fondly as we are here today at an interfaith event. He says, I come to you, he said, with a great deal of appreciation and a great feeling of admiration for what has been accomplished. And as he mentioned, this beautiful setting in this beautiful state of our union. And he reflected and he said, I thought about the struggle that we're engaged with at that point in time in the South. And here in 2021, we might beg to say, well, what are some of the challenges that we continue to be engaged with? But they looked to our great state for inspiration as a noble example of what we've accomplished in terms of racial harmony and racial justice, and what had been part of the ongoing struggle for civil and human rights in other parts of the country. And as we look to the legislature, which is where we're getting ready to continue this journey now and to hear from some of our representatives from the legislature, he says, you never know what it means to those of us who have been caught in the often dark midnight of man's inhumanity towards other man, to come to a place where seeing the glowing daybreak of freedom and dignity and racial justice, and how much that meant to not only Dr. King, but those who are in the struggle. And being a legacy member of the NAACP and representing nationally and having family who's fought to advance the likes of Brown versus Board of Education, it means so much to us that we continue as this incredible state of Hawaii to be a shining light in terms of a struggle towards equality and being a bright light in such a dark world. So again, thank you, and to the governor for the work that you do to continue to allow us to lead the way, as we have been so powerfully in things like sustainability and otherwise. So we're just so proud of the work that's being done here. And to share a little bit more about what's happening statewide, we'd like to welcome the first of a series of incredible guests doing policy work, none other than Senator Stanley Chang, to continue share about what's going on. Representative Chang.
Good morning and aloha, everyone.
Aloha.
It's a real honor to be here today to participate in this moving ceremony at the invitation of my good friend Joanne Tachibana, whose work over many decades to advance peace in our state have really moved me, and I hope many of the members of our government. As the years recede from the 76th anniversary of the bombing of Nagasaki, and that event passes out of the living memory of most of our community, it's incumbent on every generation of people, young and old, to carry that memory forward and to remember that the terrible power of atomic weapons can inflict so much devastation on innocent people. I've been inspired to have worked in recent years with some of the young physicists and scientists who do remember and who are so appalled by the violent power of atomic weapons that they are working tirelessly to ensure that that never happens again, and that the United States and other countries will never again resort to atomic weapons to resolve conflicts around the world. But that battle is a never-ending one. And it's through events like this that we remind ourselves of the importance of that work, how it must be carried on by every person in our community in ways large and small. And so I'm humbled and honored to be here to, in a small way, help remember the victims of that horrible event 76 years ago and ensure that they will be the last to ever die in warfare with atomic weapons. Thank you very much.
Before Stanley leaves the stage, Stanley Chang got married last night. Give him a round of applause.
What is he doing here?
Wonderful progress.
I know. Read the rule book, man.
So wonderful. We're part of the honeymoon.
Congratulations.
At this time, we want to direct your attention towards the screen for a special message from the mayor of Honolulu, Mayor Rick Mangiari.
Aloha. This year, we mark the 28th Nagasaki Peace Ceremony. The war between Japan and the United States and its allies began with the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, and essentially ended with the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, the Nagasaki Bell, right here on our civic grounds at Honolulu Hale, is a constant reminder of our deep ties of friendship and peace that continue even as we're unable to openly cross borders to commemorate events as we once did due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So today, we pause to remember and honor all of the victims of those tragic bombings and vow to continue to strengthen the relationship of peace between Japan and Hawaii. Mahalo.
Also representing the city and county, we're so thrilled to have Chairman Tommy Waters of the City Council. So I'd like to offer that perhaps we bring the chairman up while we work out the technical difficulties. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. It's good to have you. Thank you for your flexibility.
Aloha, everyone. Today we gathered to recognize the 76th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Nagasaki. We gathered today because survivors of this horrific event have coordinated their efforts and energies through the years to remind us of the horrors of war, with a wish of peace and friendship for future generations. On the grounds of the City Civic Center is the Nagasaki Peace Bell, a gift given to the people of Honolulu by survivors of the Nagasaki atomic bomb. The gift was given on December 7th, 1990, on the 45th anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor, which is significant because that day is remembered as the day when the United States entered the World War II. But this beautiful gesture was meant to bring peace and friendship between the city of Honolulu and the city of Nagasaki. The bell is also significant because of its close ties to a dear friend, Marcia Joyner, who recently passed away. And I'm reminded of her legacy of peace and love and equality due to her work with Dr. Martin Luther King. As a legislator, my goal is to make our community, our city, a better place. I would like to extend my thanks and appreciation to the event organizers and participants for their steadfast commitment towards making our world a better place, a safer place, and spreading the prospect of global peace and friendship. Mahalo to the Reverend Yamamura and Honolulu Myohoji Mission for hosting us today. But I'd love to work with you and our mayor to gather at the Peace Bell next year and commemorate this event. Aloha and mahalo.
I want to bring up none other than our president of the Nagasaki Kenjinkai, Motsubu Shiba, for a few words to share with us, and we will then have a song followed by some additional messages. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Good morning and aloha. To behalf of representative of Honolulu, Hawaii, Kenjinkai. 5 years old, I was in Nagasaki, and unluckily, I didn't get there hurt. And now I'm living here more than near 6 years. And every year when I see this event, my feeling is high. To the ladies and gentlemen, I'm very appreciative. Thank you very much. I would like to express my prayers over this 28th annual Nagasaki Peace Ceremony in Hawaii. Through 76 years, commemoration of and tribute to the survivors the bombing of Nagasaki. Now, over 7 decades have passed since August 7, 1945, and survivors are getting in old age. Their average age is 83 years old. Their memory are fading into the midst of the history. So in Nagasaki, August 9 is marked as the Day of Prayers for Nagasaki Peace, and as Nagasaki is the last place for bombing, the citizens of Nagasaki are praying that miserable experience will never be repeated on Earth. We also consider it our duty to ensure that experience is not forgotten, but passed on intact to future generations. Please join us as a hope and move toward a peaceful world without nuclear weapons. In closing, I express a deep sympathy to the late Mrs. Marsha Rose as Joyner, who passed away in April 10, 2021, as one of Nagasaki Peace Committee leaders since 1993. God bless you. Thank you very much. 召されて妻は天国へ別れて一人旅立ちぬ熱海に残るロザリオの座りに白き我が涙慰め励まし長崎の長崎の鐘が鳴る
I'd like to begin our series of messages from interfaith representatives here today. So I'm going to read their names in the order in which they will appear in the program, and then we'll invite them to start making their way to begin to share. The first is none other than Secretary General of the Hawaii Baha'i Community. We have Mrs. Molly Sperry representing the Baha'i faith. We'll also hear from Bishop Eric Matsumoto representing the Honpa Huangi Mission of Hawaii. We'll then hear from Reverend Kenneth Makwane, representing as pastor of the Koihau Church and the Christian faith. We will hear then from Marabi Matula Joya, the representative of Ahmadiyya Muslim community. And we will close out this section with a message from Diane Fujio, the co-director of the Love, Peace, and Harmony Foundation, with a message on love, peace, and harmony. So if those individuals can please join us here, and we'll hear from you over the next few minutes.
Good morning. I just want to say how much I appreciate the tapestry of information that has been shared and the thought-provoking comments that have been made already as part of this program. The inscription accompanying the gift of the Nagasaki Peace Bell in 1990, which we are acknowledging today, was a message of reconciliation to the city and county of Honolulu. It reads, Nagasaki, the city devastated by the bitter tragedy of a nuclear bomb, dedicates this Nagasaki bell as a symbol of rebirth of Nagasaki and the desire of its citizens for peace in the future through sincere reconciliation and reflection on the folly of war. What a brave and bold gesture this gift represents. An outstretched hand of forgiveness and promise, an offering of peace and friendship, a call to recognize the grievous harm wrought by war, and a tangible step towards assuaging deep hurts. Today, we remember with tearful hearts the suffering caused by nuclear attacks. We pray fervently for the victims. And in keeping with the desire of the citizens of Nagasaki, we do more. We do more through our reflections on the folly and destruction of war, and by our own promotion of peace. During World War I, Abdu'l-Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith, clearly laid out the stark juxtaposition of War and Peace when he wrote, "War is destruction, while universal peace is construction. War is death, while peace is life. War is rapaciousness and bloodthirstiness, while peace is beneficence and humaneness. War is darkness upon darkness, while peace is heavenly light. War is the destroyer of the edifice of mankind, while peace is the everlasting life of the world of humanity. War is like a devouring wolf, while peace is like the angels of heaven. War is the struggle for existence, while peace is mutual aid and cooperation among the peoples of the world. Humanity longs for peace. The core of our religions, our consciences, our hearts call for it. We who are enlightened, we who are gathered here, are those who recognize the folly of war and are, I suspect, fiercely concerned with the furtherance of peace. I close today with a simple charge, also from Abdu'l-Baha, a charge we can implement right now. Words that speak to the power of thought and the importance of the act of our reflection this morning. I charge you all that each one of you concentrate all of your thoughts, all the thoughts of your heart, on love and unity. And when a thought of war comes, oppose it by a stronger thought of peace. A thought of hatred must be destroyed by a more powerful thought of love.
Good morning and aloha kako. As we gather for this 28th annual Nagasaki Peace Ceremony, let us reflect and rededicate ourselves to a world of peace and harmony, free of nuclear weapons of destruction and respect for human life. May we be guided and inspired by enlightened wisdom and compassion. His Eminence, Kojun Otani, the spiritual leader, the Jojo Shinshu Honganji Buddhist denomination shares, quote, "Anywhere in the world we may go, we must never forget about the tragedy of war that cost the lives of so many people," end quote. He further shares, quote, "The weakness of our relationships with each other is the result of us thinking about ourselves more than others," end quote. Today, let us also recall the bold statement made by the delegation from Ceylon to the San Francisco Peace Treaty or talks of 1951, in which Sri Lanka renounced all claims of reparations with the following words, quote, "We in Ceylon were fortunate that we were not invaded, but the damage caused entitled us to ask that the damage so caused should be repaired. We do not intend to do so, for we believe in the words of the great teacher whose message has enabled the lives of countless millions in Asia, that hatred ceases not by hatred, but by love." According to the teachings of the Enlightened One, human beings tend to move in the direction of their thoughts. And therefore, our thoughts are very important. And this is also reflected in the well-known golden chain of love with the words, "I will try to think pure and beautiful thoughts, to say pure and beautiful words, and to do pure and beautiful deeds, knowing that on what I do now depends not only my happiness or unhappiness, but also that of others." Thus, on the occasion of the 76th anniversary of the tragic bombing of Nagasaki, illuminated by the Buddha's lights of wisdom, purity, and joy, which addresses our anger, greed, and ignorance, bringing awareness, joy, and gratitude into our life, let us be mindful of our thoughts, words, and actions. Let us aspire, as found in the Metta Sutta, may all life be happy, may one and all be joyous and safe. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. Thank you.
Aloha mai kako. Really. I'm so glad to be here. I really am. And I'm so glad I'm not a politician, because I don't have to be diplomatic. I can be real. And the real part is like when I was listening to Senator speak, we have to remember lest we forget. You know, my grandmother and my parents have all been in that time. The proliferation of the horrifying things that happened throughout the 20th century, beginning with the Armenian genocide, going into the Holocaust, going into countless other things, and even up to into the 90s, when we're talking about Bosnia. There are so many atrocities in life, but if we forget them and they don't stay inside our hearts, then we will always look for ways to bully other people. This particular event I come to because it changes the paradigm into what is peaceful and what is not compartmentalized. I appreciate the fact that all of us standing here are part and parcel of our ethnicities of countries that have bashed other people. Japan included, United States included, Russia included, and countless other nations. So all of us have this iha. We have this blame going on within us. And each of us, in our forgiving ways, put out our hands and heart of peace towards each other. I want to read you a couple of things before I end. And it's statements by people. And it speaks about peace. Thomas Paine said, "I prefer peace, but if trouble must come, then let it come in my time so that my children can live in peace." It talks about John F. Kennedy speaking, "Those who make peaceful resolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable." Mother Teresa, if we have no peace, it is because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. Her husband, Mahatma Gandhi, he said, "An eye for an eye ends up making the whole world blind." In the book of Matthew, chapter 5, Jesus Christ said, "An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist anyone who slaps you on the right cheek. Turn to them the other cheek. And if everyone wants to sue you and take the shirt off your back, give them your coat too. If anyone focuses you and forces you to go 1 mile, go 2 miles. To give the one who asks you, and to not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you." You have heard it. Love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you. For it's poho. It's useless if you love the one you love. It's harder to love the one you think you hate. And in that turnaround time, peace will exist in our life. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful. Aloha, good morning, and assalamu alaikum. It's an Islamic greeting which means peace be with you all. First of all, I'd like to thank the planning committee, Joanne, Ed, for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with you today at the occasion of the 28th annual Nagasaki Peace Ceremony, which marks the 76th year of peace with Japan. A loss of any life, a loss of any human life is in reality a loss of all of mankind. The Holy Quran states in chapter 5 that whoever kills a person, it should be as if he has killed the whole of humankind. And whoever saves the life of a person is as if he has saved the life of the whole humankind. As we've gathered today to commemorate the magnitude of innocent lives lost some 76, almost 77 years ago now, let us also reflect on some of the beautiful attributes of God and how we could make them part of our lives to make the world a better place. There are 99 names of God mentioned in the Holy Quran. I'd like to name a few, followed by a pause. And I request everyone here and the virtual audience to ponder, pause, reflect, and ask yourself that how I may practice this attribute of God in my life so I could be his true image. So I'll be reading some of the names or attributes of God with the request for all of us to reflect and ponder over. Ar-Rahman, which means the most gracious. Ar-Rahim, the ever merciful. As-Salam, the source of peace. Ar-Razaq, the provider. Al-Adl, the just. Al-Halim, the forbearing. Al-Ghafur, the most forgiving. Al-Ghaffar, the great forgiver. Ash-Shakur, the most appreciating. Al-Badud, the most loving and compassionate. Al-Bar, the beneficent. An-Nafi, the benefactor. And Ash-Shafi, the healer. Thank you once again, everyone. God bless.
Hello, my name is Diane Fujio, and I really thank every speaker that I've heard today. I listened to every message, and it is really important because we all carry messages. We've had great messages given by our leaders, our legislators, our governor, our governor's wife, our lieutenant governor, our mayor. Everyone carries. And these leaders are so important because their sphere of influence with their message is so great. They can reach so many more people. You heard our great leaders of the past, Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, all of these wonderful peacemakers and leaders. But we too We, the average person, and everyone here can carry a message. You heard about the sunflowers and the message that they carry. They absorb the negativity. But it's all of us, including everyone who's watching this webcast and will watch it in the future. We can all carry a positive message. And I would like to offer you a very simple message that every person can receive and also share. That is why we're here with the interfaith, all of the different religions, traditions, cultures, is because we have to carry the best message. We heard the past and what wonderful things were done. We heard about the proclamations of, people standing up, countries standing up and saying no more nuclear destructive weapons. We also heard a message just by the challenges that we had with the technical sound, which is a message teaching us, hey, don't give up, persist, and really be patient. 76 years is not enough. It has to be lifetimes. I saw the babies there, the young boy. It has to be generational. We have to change our message. So I'd like to offer you this in a song. I'm not a great singer like our Reverend Yamamura, who's an opera singer, but it means that every single man, woman, child can sing this song. It's called Love, Peace, and Harmony, and was given from the highest source.
I'll just speak louder. So this is a song called Love, Peace, and Harmony, and I'll sing it in English, in Hawaiian, and in Japanese. I love my heart and soul. I love both humanity. Join hearts and souls together. Love, peace, and harmony. Love, peace, and harmony. Now I'll sing it in Hawaiian, so just receive it so that you hold on to that message and it becomes your message. Aloha mai ia'u.
Derek, we're moving the whole script.
Aloha, malukimi, lokahi, malukia. Aloha, malukia, lokahi. And in honor of our Japanese and my ancestry, our ancestors, I will sing it in Japanese. Okarata tawashi wo aishiteru. Jinrui sumete wo aishiteru. Okarata tawashi wo hitotsu ni shio. Ae wa soshite jowa. Ae wa soshite jowa. It's a message. Carry the message. Whether you remember it or not. Just think. Love. So thank you.
At this time, we welcome back my Reverend Makane for the tourism of Tuesday. This will be followed by everyone will have the opportunity to participate after we invite each of you who are here and those who are joining us on screen to participate in the reading of the bell to mark the end of this commemoration. For We're so grateful to those who are here, who have participated. We also want to, again, recognize the incredible, thoughtful committee that put together today's commemoration. I'd like to recognize at this time, if you'd like to please stand if you're part of the committee, Reverend Mora, Honolulu Myohoji Mission, Dan Liu, President of the Temple here, Multicultural Shiva, Lucky Clinton High, William Sousa, Royal Order of the One, Hawaii Chapter 4, President of Ghana, United Nations Association, Honolulu Chapter, and we're young of Hawaii Community, Okinawa, Honolulu, Derek Tamora, Aria Sad of the United Nations Association, UH, Joshua Cooper, Institute for Human Rights. Just want to thank each of you for being here with us. Thank you for your commitment toward the advancement of humans. Have the opportunity to reflect on the importance and significance as we continue to develop together to ensure a world that is free from nuclear weapons, a world that's free from war, a world where no one is left behind, but works for everyone. And thank you. I invite you up for prayer, followed by ringing the bell, a special presentation of Ave Maria. As we prepare to ring the bell, you'll be able to grab your bentos on the way out. And of course, as Thomas with our Zoom audience, we will as we leave with a special socially distanced rendition of Hawaii Aloha. Thank you so very much for being here with us. Thank you for bearing with us. And thank you to all for the hardworking contributions that we make.
Thank you for, all of you are change makers. All of you make a difference in the world. And so I know that Governor Abercrombie was talking about Dietrich Bonhoeffer, which is one of my favorite theologians. Another one is a theologian, a Methodist theologian, and his name is John Wesley. And you folks do this often. And so to remind others, to do all you can by all the means that you can, in all the ways that you can, in all the places that you can, at all the times that you can, to all the people that you can, for as long as you can. So I just offer a benediction for you. Myohoji Peace Bell. The Lord will bless you and keep you. The Lord will make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord will lift his countenance unto you and give you peace now and forever. Mawakakalopo kayo, kahako Yesu Kristo, na may kialoha, kiakua, kalongapua na may ikaw manini mo lalimi ukopa kahiyapaw. Amen. Amen.
Ave Maria comes next. Reverend Mora. Those who are participating via Zoom, please feel free to turn on your cameras, unmute, and join us as we close out today's commemoration with Hawaii Aloha. We join hands today in spirit, elbow to elbow, fist to fist, whatever your